Well, back in the 30s, there, Aliquippa was a beautiful place, to live. People come here from the South. They come from Europe. They come here looking for better lives and better life and to raise their families. And during those days, that there wasn't a lot of money that people had, but they had a lot of love. They had a lot of friendship. I recall back in those days, say that if my mother was sick, the neighbors, they would come over and help out. Even though the neighbor was an Italian woman or a Serbian woman, a Polish woman, they would come out, they would come over here, they would do the washing, and during that time, they washed with a rub board, you understand? With a wash machine, see? Okay, then some of them would cook. My father be working in the mill. He'd come home, dinner would be ready. Okay, the kids, they saw that the kids went home, they went to school there, and so in that time, you go to school, and you come home for lunch. Okay, so where in the small children, these neighbors, they would fix the meals for them like that. But go ahead. So what I'm saying here is, it was really nice. If we was all poor, and it wasn't no such thing as that I was bigger than you were, all this kind of stuff. And people got along really nice. We didn't have this thing breaking in. I know the stores we had around this area, there was never a thing of breaking in. We never locked our doors at night, And so what I'm saying is, in other words, is that it was really beautiful, to the extent where we didn't have much. But it seemed like, in other words, when you get more, you think different, you react different,
Okay, good. Remember, keep me in the 30s. Don't take me out the
Okay,
30s.
okay.
Now, tell me the story of your father told you about having to be a Republican to get a job at J&L. We talked about it the first time I was
here. Yeah, right. Well, my father, he told me that.
Wait a minute. You got to try to look at me.
Okay, dude. Okay. My father, he would. He told me. He said, "Buddy," he says, in order to get a job at the mill, you have to be a Republican. And I said to my dad, I said, "Why you have to be a Republican?" He said, "Well, the Republican control the town. See, and that includes the jobs." And the jobs determine your livelihood. You understand? And so therefore, you have to be a Republican in order to get a job. See, is that there were certain Negroes at the time. That's what we called Negroes. We didn't call them blacks. They said Negroes, that you went to them and said, "Well, I'd like to get a job." See, and then in turn, they would go down to the mill and tell the people down the mill, "Well, Jim Downey want a job." See, so then Jim Downey go down there and put his application in. Well, Jim Downey was if they figured that he was worthy enough, he would get a job. But the thing is here, if he wasn't worthy enough, he couldn't get no job. And so therefore, you was obligated to them. You see, and you had to register as a Republican in order to get a job. And then on election day, they had buses, the old Big Mac buses, I recall them, and they would come into the mill and get the men and take them to the poll. And they told you, say, now, you vote for this individual here. So that's what you did in order to protect your job, understand? So what I'm saying is, just like they had the peoples in various sections of the town, and he was in plants.
Okay, wait a minute, we'll get to that. That's
okay,
good.
Okay.
That's good. Now, tell me a little bit more about how the company, J&L, dominated the town. I mean, how they work with the police and the elected officials and own the electric company and the company store. No. Tell me about all that.
Well, they didn't own electric company, they owned the company store. Okay. Uh, they own.
You gotta say J&L.
Okay, J&L was in control totally of the town. It reminded me when I used to hear my father say about plantation owners down south when he had sharecroppers working for him. In other words, the big boss down at sharecropper, he kept the books. You didn't keep the time. He kept the time. So therefore, whatever he put down there, that's what it was. Same thing here in the mill. In the mill here, the company, they kept your time. If they said you got 40 hours, you got 40 hours. You may have 70 hours, but you only had 40 hours in their book. Understand? Okay. So now.
Okay, this is good. This is very good. But we have to change. Film.
Okay.
And the reason why.
Yes, as I was stating about that, they kept.
We just had a car go by. Just give us a second. And start again.
As I was stating, the bosses, they kept the time. They kept the time. And if they said you only got 40 hours, you got 40 hours. You may put in 60 hours, whatever. You understand? So therefore, in other words, that you had no recourse with the union. Then you had a recourse. Things changed. People were underpaid for the hours they had put in because they had no recourse to come to. If you went into argue with the boss about you, then you can get fired. Understand? Like that. See. So this was some of the good things that the union did. It gave the employees some pride, wherein they could speak out. And they weren't afraid of being fired, this here. But it took a long time for a lot of individuals to realize that the union were their keeper, you see.
Good. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Now, what I want you to do is describe your father's job in the mill. Okay, what he did, what the working conditions were like, and so forth.
Well, wait. First, let me tell you.
If you like.
Look, wait now. As a black man, you went in the mill from the floor. Okay. You went as a laborer. Okay, I heard Mr. Bird was telling you whatnot. You went as a laborer. You didn't go there and say, well, okay, I'm going to be a timekeeper or either I'm going to be a checker, understand? You started at the bottom, and it was from digging ditches, cleaning out grease pits, you name it. And this, with the union coming, then you begin to move up into these positions, due to your service and your ability, understand? Now, how you want me to present this to you? I mean,
I don't want you to tell me about the union coming yet. I want you to tell me about how it was before the union.
Well, okay, then. Well, that's.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, my father, he would tell me about working in the mill there, and I never forget. He told me, said, yes, we got there's a candy kitchen. See, well, as a little boy, I thought they made candy there. Well, they didn't make candy. See, they made steel. But anyway, he started out as a laborer with a pick and a shovel, and the dirtiest jobs and the worstest job, and all of these things that he inherited by being a black man. Now, the Italians and Polacks, Serbians, you name them, they were a step above him. The Anglo-Saxon was a step above them. They was the high echelon, in other words. And the blacks, they were on the bottom, okay. Now, they were Italians and Serbians would come and start out as a pick and shovel. But in a course of maybe 2 or 3 weeks, they be done moved up out of that pick and the shovel. Understand? So the blacks, they always had to get what was left. In other words, I mean, and you took that because, hey, if you refuse, hey, you were fired. You see, so therefore, hey, you got a families. Many of them had families. You know, some of them just starting out. They didn't want to go back down south to own the farms down there, picking cotton and tobacco and all this. I mean, logging and all these kind of different things like that. So they come up here for a better life. You know, so therefore, they had to take this in order to get themselves up. You know.
Good. Now, tell me what it was like about the plan system, you know, in terms of where people live.
Okay.
You just told me about how
Okay.
they were channeling
Okay.
certain jobs. Tell me
Okay.
how people were channeling the certain residential areas.
Okay. Now, in Aliquippa here, they had plant 3 and plant 6 and plant 11, plant 11 extension. They had plant 12. In plant 3, there were Italian, Serbians, and Polacks, some blacks, very few blacks. And plant.
Let's stop. Let's stop. This is real important.
Right. And time.
J&L, they divided Aliquippa into sections, but they were called plans. Now, when I said plans, what I'm meaning is this, that let's assume, like I'm saying, that Plant 11 and Plant 11 Extension, they were plans for blacks, Italians, Serbian, Polak of the foreign extraction. Okay. Plant 6, it was of the Anglo-Saxons. They were where the big bosses, they all lived in Plant 6. No blacks, no Italians, no Polacks. Only they could go up there in order to do maid work or either cutting grass of this thing. And you had to be out of the area at least around about 5 or 6 o'clock in the summertime, because if not, the police would arrest you if he saw you up there. So then you had Logstown. That's another section down there by the mill.
You might want to just stop for this. And anytime.
Okay, you had Plant 12. That's another plan. Only Anglo-Saxon lived in that plan. There was no blacks, no Italians, no Polacks, no Russians, Lebanese, Syrian, what have you. Only Anglo-Saxon. Now, there's a plant down here on the Orchard Street area. It was near the Franklin Avenue. It was Anglo-Saxon. All the houses was down there on Franklin Avenue down there were Anglo-Saxon. I mean, and the blacks and Italians and whatnot, they didn't live in the area there. And they had out there another area, Aliquippa, they had called the old West Aliquippa. Out there, no blacks ever lived out there. It was Anglo-Saxon of the poor status and Italians and whatever you out there in that area. See now, so but that's the way the things were set up. In other words, you stayed in your area for a living. That's okay. You went out. Say now, but your home was in that area there. See, and I know. See, J&L built 2 swimming pools. One in Plant 12 for the whites, and one on Plant 11 extension for the blacks. Okay, they built them. Many Italian friends of mine, Polak, whatever you may call them, they couldn't go swimming in the Plant 12 swimming pool. When they went up there to go swimming, they would the Anglo-Saxon would tell them, "Hey, you too hairy. You can't swim in here. you have to go down to the river, down to the Ohio River to swim, you know. But the blacks had a pool, you know, of their own, you know, it's only for blacks, like, you know. And but the thing was here is you knew where your place was, where you lived for living condition, you know. And that's the way it had the town divided up, you know. It kept the people's, you know, only time you come in contact with other individuals is when you went to school.
Okay, anytime.
J&L,
Just give me a second. Looked in for a second. Right, I'll ride with it. Give me a moment.
J,
Okay, go ahead.
J&L built 2 swimming pools. One pool was up Plant 12 in the Anglo-Saxon section, where only Anglo-Saxons attended that pool. The Italians, Polacks, Serbians, Lebanese, they couldn't attend that pool because when they went up there, they would tell them, say, you too hairy, you make the water dirty, all this kind of stuff, see. So then they told them, you have to go to the Ohio River and swim. J&L built a pool in Plant 11 Extension. That's where the blacks live at. And that was only for blacks only. Now, but the head the head of the pools was a white Anglo-Saxon. Now he was head of both of the pools, understand? But you had workers at the Plant 11 pool, they were black. You had lifeguards, they were black, understand? And the same thing up to Plant 12, they had the white Anglo-Saxon, whatnot, see? And that was the sit-up. But now, when it came to school, there was a school here in Plant 11. It was a grade school. It went up to the 5th grade, and then from the after 6th grade, rather.
Reload.
Oh, we're out of film now.
One stop, we're done. Robert, we're gonna go.
Okay, what are you getting ready to tell me about the schools?
The school is
And take it away.
I know in the early days, before there was a union in the J&L, the workers they had no rights. You know, only rights they had was God-given rights. You know, and these the bosses and things, they didn't respect your rights and whatnot. But I know that my father, he got in with the organizing of the union. I recall men would come to our house at night to sign up for the union. They came at night because they didn't want some of the stool pigeons in our area to see them coming to the house. Now, everybody come to our house, they didn't come there to sign a union, but the thing was this here is these stool pigeons, they put in other words, the house was on the spot, other way. So a lot of people, they wouldn't even come, you know, because they didn't want to be branded, you know, that they were going there to join the union, see. In some cases they were. But the thing is this, but my father, he would offer, sometimes I think to myself, even to this day, that he had to be nuts, because thing was really, really tough. I mean, you had no rights. The cops could come to your house and say, okay, you're under arrest, and you was under arrest. And then if you resist them, they had them billy clubs, they'll beat you down and throw you in jail. You had no recourse. You understand? The county, the judges, they all was in one big family. You understand? So therefore, you had no rights. You know. So anyway, so my father, I don't know. I really don't understand to this day why he went on to take this big step, because many people had said that his son would never get a job in the mill. I was told that by other folks, but not. A lot of people were leery of me with their kids, They didn't want the kids to have a part of me because they figured that by associating with me, that the company would probably take it out on them. Understand? Their parents, okay? Yes.
So now, how was it that it was your father that ended up becoming an organizer out of all the people in the mill? Why was it that it was Mr. Downey Sr.?
I can't tell you that. I couldn't tell you, honest. I mean, I can't understand that. No, it just like, hey, I don't think I say it. I mean, the guy had to be crazy, you know. You had to be crazy because all the odds was against you, you know. But now, why? Just like I said, I can't understand. I never could understand that. No.
Do you ever remember him being afraid or
No.
having you?
No, not afraid.
You have to tell me that.
Okay. I'm ready when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I said, as I was saying, that I couldn't understand how my father would go into this when he know that there was no out. He had no out. And wherein I recall that he was locked up. Him and Mr. Dempsey were locked up because on the libel thing, wherein they had taken a family from Aliquippa here, blacks, to West Virginia line and put them out there and told them, "Don't you come back to Aliquippa." And they were locked up on those charges. Okay, my wife's father went their bond and got him out of jail. Judge, Attorney Brown from Pittsburgh, a black lawyer, took the case. I don't know whatever happened, but my father, I don't know how they sell the case or whatever, but I'm saying, in other words, that it was resolved, you know. But the thing I'm saying is he had to go to Pittsburgh, they had to go to Pittsburgh to get a lawyer. You understand?
Now, you got to look at me.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit more about the company's attitude towards union organizers and people that were joining the union. I mean, what would they do to discourage the organizing and people to join? What did they do?
Well, the thing is, I'm saying here is that black peoples was the last one to get on board. If you understand what I'm saying, they was the last to join up the union. The Italians, the Polacks, the Russians, the Serbians, they were afraid, a lot of them, but they was more aggressive than the blacks. My father, he stood out there just like a sore thumb, you know, wherein he had no recourse, you understand? But the thing is here, with these other men, that these other white men, and some Anglo-Saxon, they were part of it. Italians and whatever, they were part of it. And I think he got his strength from those men, although he was black, understand? Now, those white men, they could have left Aliquippa and go right down the road down there to another plant, you understand? But, you see, they would also, if they knew you that you would leave, you get fired here, and you went maybe down the next little town, and they found you working out there, they would get in contact with them to have them to fire you because you're a troublemaker. Understand? You see? So these are all threats that they use to turn people away from the union. You see?
Let me ask you now. I had a gentleman tell me that it was a strategy of the union to organize the white workers first and then organize the blacks, because if they tried to organize them together, then some of the white workers would be resistant to that. And do you have any knowledge of that?
No. Only thing I'm telling you, I know the whites. Well, if it don't be for the whites, if they had to wait on the blacks, there wouldn't be no union. No, there wouldn't be no union because my father, just like you heard Mr. Bird say today, he begged a guy to join your union. You understand what I'm talking about? You see, and therefore I know that the black peoples, they was afraid to be seen with him. He could be talking about the weather, or he could be talking about the ball game. You understand? But the thing is here, this guy is a union organizer. So therefore, you know, don't be seen with this guy. You know what I'm saying. You know, so
Let's just stop.
Take 7 is up.
Now,
what you want?
what I want you to tell me about when we begin is
You don't know nothing about the company.
okay,
Mr.
no
Bird.
problem. I want you to tell me about the 1937 strike.
Okay, we're all set.
Well, they had quite a few strikes. And I can't get a date on me what year, what not. But I know is that one strike, the first strike I witnessed, and I went down there downtown, down there by the mill tunnel down there, and the governor he sent in state troopers on horses.
Wait a minute, I need for you to say that again because we got the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. We won't stop. We'll just keep on rolling. Just start
Okay.
all over again.
Okay, I recall. I think I call the first strike I witnessed. It must have been, I guess, by I don't know where 37 somewhere along there. Okay, the men was down there down on Franklin Avenue down there in front of the entrance of the tunnel, and the governor he sent in state troopers on horses, and they had these long sticks, look like little mini baseball bats. But anyway, they come in them horses, and they was hitting anything that was standing there, down there amongst, out there picking out there. I've seen that with my own eyes. See, okay, but you see, those things disencouraged a lot of men because they was afraid. See, yeah. And therefore, in other words, to me, like Mr. Bird was saying this morning about,
We gotta stop because of the airplane now.
We're all set. It's going away, I think. No? Okay.
I recall one day my father was telling me, he said, buddy, he said, they are supposed to pick me up, some fellas supposed to pick me up and take me out and beat me. I said, beat you, Dad? He said, yeah, they're supposed to beat me, take me out and beat me. I said, yeah. And, but that didn't disencourage him. But it never materialized. So, but I do know this. There were two men, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. French, two men. They took those men up on Griffin Heights, up there on Griffin Heights, and beat those men up. Yes, sir, I know that for a fact, understand? But the thing is here, it didn't stop the people from joining the union. See, the union began to pick up more steam, and the blacks began to see that the union was one of their best security.
Ran out of the good line.
Now we gotta change film.
Well, hey.
Okay.
Robert,
And who beat him?
we're all set.
I recall that they took Mr. Mitchell and Mr. French up on Griffin Heights up there, where they used to play ball up there. And they beat these two men because they joined the union. Now, undoubtedly, it must have been someone that the company had hired to do this. And as I stated earlier, my father told me that some men were supposed to pick him up and beat him, but it never materialized. But I also recall, too, my father, he told me sometime later that the company had offered him a boss job, foreman job, see, in order, you take this job, that take you out of the union, understand, and, but you see, my father, he knew being a boss doing it back in the 30s, like I'm trying to fly without wings, So therefore, he didn't fall for that bait. You understand? And like I'm saying, this is why I'm so proud of him in so many ways, because the opportunities was there for him in a lot of ways to give up this fight, which he rather fight and run. Understand? And I see a lot of that in myself. You understand? So I'm really proud that some of the things that he have did for the community.
Now, can you tell me what Roosevelt meant to working people and the steel workers in particular?
Well, only thing I know, I could say this. I don't know about in the steel workers, but I know. I'll go ahead and tell you what I know as a child. Ready?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to look at me.
Okay, I'm looking at you. So, I recall back in the 28 somewhere along there, when Hoover and Al Smith was running for president. And I was only about 8 or 9 years old. So the people were saying that if you get Al Smith, he's going to bring back liquor, wet, you call it wet, that was in our, see. So the people said, well, we don't want Al Smith. So they got, so they voted for Hoover. So then came the Depression. Then the next time the election came, I think, I don't know what was it. This guy from Kansas, the Sunfire State, or whatever. But anyway, President Roosevelt, he ran, and he won. He won, and things began to change. The people saw hope that in this man's speech on the radios at the time, because when he spoke over the radio, it was like a holiday. Cause everybody, well, it wasn't all that many radios, number one, and those people that had radios, you had a lot of company there. Had a lot of company in the house because everybody wanted to hear what President Roosevelt had to say. This is how much they really liked the man and believed in the man. So he started. He formed a.
Let me stop you, Mr.
Yeah.
Downey, because this is important, but it's in another show.
Okay.
Okay. As a matter of fact, it's in my other show.
Okay.
So, but,
Okay.
let me change the subject.
Okay.
Just so to
All right.
redirect it,
Okay.
Now, after the Union won,
Yeah.
okay, and they then sort of redirected their direction and got involved in electoral politics.
Right.
Sponsoring candidates, running candidates, and
Right.
whatnot. Why did they feel that was important?
Well, you see, back in the 20s, 30s, here when election time would come, the company would have these white men were candidates. They would come up here on Plant 11 and Plant 11 Extension, where the black churches were. They would come there and tell the peoples to vote for this candidate or that candidate, you see? And therefore, the peoples, that's who they would vote for, you see? They would give the preachers, I guess, $5 or $10, whatever it may be, you see? They knew that the blacks had faith in their ministers. So this you figure you got him, so he'll lead the flocks.
Okay,
see?
let's stop. That's not where we want to go.
Okay. I recall the first time the first time he ran for a public election was He ran for the inspector, the poll inspector. What that person does, they watch and see that no tampering with the ballot. Understand? Okay. And he kept order at the poll. Well, hey, that was a big thing. You understand? And because all before it was all white. Well, in this day and time, it's a small thing. It's a small thing. You understand? But he ran and won that. From there, then he went on and won out in the Union as vice president. The point what I'm getting at here is that elections, political elections, is what governs the country. It governs everybody's lives. Politics. I don't care what field you're in or whatever, it's politics. And that's what governs you. In my lifetime, I ran for city council here. It was a borough at the time. I won the first time. First black ever won for councilman here in Aliquippa. I won it. Okay. Before I even ran.
Mr. Downey,
Okay.
I got to stop you.
Go ahead.
I have to stop you because you're getting me out of the 30s.
Okay.
And deal with that
No,
either.
no.
Because that's out of time.
No, okay.
We just want to talk about elections in general.
Okay.
You ready?
Ready.
It's very important the people register and vote in order to elect officials that will give you justice. When I say mean justice, this means it comes from the city officials, county officials, and state officials, and the United States officials. In your local community, you elect councilmen, and therefore they are your governing body. You put them in when you vote for them. They serve you. And therefore, in other words, they set the rules that you live by in that community. So therefore, it's important that you register and vote, because that's the only way that you're going to get justice, is by voting. People's in and voting people's out. It goes all the way to the courthouse. The judges are put in by you. Sometimes, other ways, they don't do as you see fit, but they are in control. And
This is good, but I still need for you to tell me that the union realized, and the people in the union realized they couldn't really change their lives until they fought,
all right.
not only in the plant, but in the community.
Okay, no, that's good. Okay.
Okay, let's stop.
Give me one moment for the sun to come back. It's coming back and it's fine.
The union, they learned that you have to get involved in politics in order to get a lot of laws passed. They elect officials that will give you laws that will protect the union and protect you. And this is why the union got involved with politics, because it elects governors, it elects presidents, and it elects judges. So therefore, when the cases comes up, then in other words, I elected you. And therefore, in other words, I want a fair trial because I supported and elected you. If you don't get involved in the politics, then you don't have no support when you want to go before the judges and what have you, because it operates. These lawyers, corporations, they got lawyers, they got judges, a lot of them, because they don't pay them off. But by you having your input as elected, as a politician, they will listen to you. And this is the strength. I know the union have put in many presidents, put in many judges, the union had put in many sheriffs in these communities. You understand? In some towns, they have put in.
We just ran out of film.
Okay,
But I think we got it.
okay, okay. Yeah, up in Plant 6 area, this is where your superintendents and your higher officials of J&L, this is where they lived at. And in this area there, that blacks, Italian, Polacks, Syrian, Lebanese, what have you, the only time they was up there, if they went up there to do some kind of manual work, and around 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening was the latest that you could be up there. And if you was caught up there after those hours, the policeman, he would arrest you because you weren't allowed up there, you see. And like the swimming pool up in Plant 12, the Anglo-Saxon, they ran it. They didn't allow the Italians, the Polacks, the Russians, the Lebanese, what have you. They told them, said, don't come in here because you too hairy. We don't want the water to get all hairy up and whatnot. Go down to the Ohio River, down there by the mill, and swim. Yeah. And those are the things that they put those people through. Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. Now, there are all these ethnic groups. Did this economic situation that they found themselves in, everyone oppressed, everyone under the control of the company, did that bring all these various ethnic groups together in some way, shape, or form?
The Union.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, okay, let me wait. Now, the Union, see, when the Union began to get organized and get strength, so did the peoples get organized and being in politics, you see. And this is when you begin to elect an Italian fellow named Duke Fontana, the first let's say non as a mayor. See, all before that was all Anglo-Saxon mayors. You see, Duke Fontana, that big old building see up here, those Italians, they built that building there.
Don't get out of time.
I know. I say they built that building. See, but what I'm saying is that they started getting unity. They getting strength. They wasn't afraid like they used to was before. You understand? You see, when people get mobilized, started mobilizing, then there's strength there. You see, like Dr. Martin Luther King, he got strength there. But the thing is, when he started out, man, he had a lot of trouble even with blacks.
Okay, Mr. Downey, but again, keep
I
in the 30s.
know that. I'm just showing you about. Go ahead. Okay, but that's.
Because see, at the time.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just giving you an example. That's all. Okay.
Okay. If your father was here, and I asked him if it was all worth it, what the Union accomplished, what all he went through, if it was all worth it, what would he tell me?
He would say every bit of it. Okay.
My father would say.
Yeah, my father would say.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Okay, my father would say that every moment, every second that he put in a many hours, minutes, months, and days and years into to bring this reality. And like I said now, the only thing I said, I just wish he would have been here to receive how these things have changed. Many people have told me after my father died, 1945, that yes, your father was a great man, but before he was living, he was no good. No, he wasn't. He was a troublemaker. all this kind of stuff, you see. But now they say, oh, yes, oh, he was a good man, great man, you know. We need more men like him, you see. But he's gone.